I rarely ever saw and played a game that felt as well refined and perfectly iterated as Balatro. For me, it's absolutely no wonder. It was one of the best-selling games of 2024. It sold more than 5 million copies, won multiple game awards, and even more stunningly, it was created by a solo game developer known as Local Thunk in around 2 years, and now has 133,000 reviews on Steam with 97% thumbs up or recommended. But before going into analysis mode, I want to try to summarize Balatro real quick for all the weirdos which live under a rock that have not played it yet, so that everyone can follow what I talk about. Even though I know it's nearly impossible to describe the game feel for someone who has not played the game themselves. In Balatro, you basically have to beat the score with poker hands. The score you need increasing exponentially, so the player has to improve their score exponentially as well to beat round after round. For this, they have a simple formula of how to gain points with each played hand. It's the amount of chips multiplied by a multiplier. Each playable hand type, like a pair or full house, gives base points depending on the complexity of the hand, and the played cards and jokers might add points or add multiplying factors or even re-trigger them. To improve the score, the players need to buy all kinds of upgrades. Most importantly, a name giving to the game, jokers. These completely change the game, and every joker can have a devastating effect on the scored result each round. And while you're trying to find the perfect joker for each strategy, you also need to keep your economy wealthy, because all the upgrades are super expensive. That leaves the all-important question I want to answer in this video. Why is Balatro so incredibly good? And the short answer is because it is fun to play. But what makes a game fun to play, really? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, sorry for the pronunciation, was a leading psychologist, and he coined the term flow for the state in which we are hyper-focused and concentrated and lose the sense of time. It is to this day what I believe is the best way of describing what it is that makes people actually happy. Flow is when you're challenged with a task and you have the right amount of challenge and the right amount of skill needed to solve the challenge. And one of the most difficult things in game development is to make players fall into this flow state. And for this, it needs to be very accessible so that beginners do not feel completely lost in it, and what is often called easy to learn, but also needs to be hard to master. So what makes Balatro easy to learn? Balatro is very accessible. Everyone knows the card types, and most people know some kind of poker. The base game is understood very easily. Most people that played similar games understand the concept of the shop to upgrade your decks. This game does also a really good job at visually guiding you. For example, you can always see the score you get, what kind of hand you play, and also there's cues like the hand will start burning once your score is high enough with a single hand to beat the whole round. And what makes Balatro so hard to master? Well, it's easy. It gives you 150 different jokers to play around with. Each joker usually feeds a different kind of strategy, and the chances of getting the one you want are always very slim, so you cannot count on getting the one joker that you want, yet there might be similar effects that work for your strategy. The number of 150 jokers, it's also called Dunbar's number in psychology. It's the amount of people back in the times you went through the desert you had in a tribe, for example, so that's around a number that you can somewhat remember easily. Now, having to find jokers and a working strategy at increasingly difficult stakes can be really rewarding. And as one player called it, playing it makes me feel smart. And that is, these jokers give you massive control over how the game plays and feels. Even though in the end, we are simply playing poker hands, it just feels really good doing so. Another point that Balatro is doing so well is that players' choices, they matter from the beginning until the end. And for me, this is the reason why I love playing video games way more than watching TV or sports or YouTube videos. Getting to make impactful choices is simply really rewarding. So in Balatro, you have high power scaling. You have to score in the beginning around hundreds of points, and then in the later stages of the game, millions of points. And at every corner, you have to decide things in a risk versus reward style. Same what makes gambling so addicting. So for example, skipping a small blind might give you a small reward, but it will also skip your shop step, so you will not be able to buy fresh jokers that you so desperately need, especially in the beginning. This is your first choice you have to make in every game of Balatro, and it's not an easy choice usually. In the later stages, you might might have to set up your jokers and your strategy, but then you have to add cards to your deck or trim away cards that you don't need anymore. And also here, you always run into choices that deeply impact your later game. This all results in Balatro's extremely high replayability. These jokers will change the game drastically in some aspect, and some jokers might reward you for playing all face cards, but only playing face cards might make you lose to the boss ante, which will devaluate all face cards. Some jokers might reward you for playing one color, one specific color, for example spades, and some might reward you for playing all colors in one hand. And the sheer number of jokers and only stumbling into random ones sometimes during shop stages, while trying to find out which jokers somehow work with your deck, while the goals each round increase and increase, it simply feels amazing when you get something to work. And when you finally beat the round, you can increase the difficulty in the outer game loop by playing either higher stakes or play tough challenges. And that's when kind of the real game actually begins. These higher difficulties might make jokers temporary, which means you might need to find replacements soon for the jokers you already got, or it might reduce the amount of money you earned, or reduce the amount of hands you can play each round. So it adds more RNG factors while making the game increasingly more difficult. What Balatro is also doing really well is having an amazing game feel and just being super satisfying, even if it's only very simple 2D graphic. And getting a deck to work looks and feels amazing. There's always bigger and bigger numbers popping up, the calculations are burning brighter and brighter, and the re-triggering effects become faster and louder the better your game is set up. And this is it just feels amazing. It's hard to describe why, but it kind of triggers all the right things in your brain. So to sum it all up, finding this perfect formula is only achieved in one way. The person actually in charge of changing the rules of the game needs to be 100% committed to make exactly this kind of game. He needs to play the game a lot himself to be able to tell what changes need to be done for the game to improve and iterate forward into becoming the perfect game. And if you have some kind of higher up manager thinking about sales and how to implement another way of draining your player base out of money, instead of improving the gameplay, your game is set up to fail, because making a really good game is tough enough already. Look at Blizzard, look at all the AAA studios and how they fail 9 out of 10 times to deliver a somewhat playable game. And Balatro is the perfect example why indie games are often so much more effective and simply feel way better to play. So yeah, if you're still around, I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed my little talk about Balatro from a more psychological perspective, and yeah, my analysis on what I think made Balatro so incredibly addictive. I hope it gave you some nice ideas how to improve your game as well. Now, yeah, you should stop watching videos and start programming. So see you around.